it's Tracy, and I thought I would just give you a little peek into some little bits of Wild Blooms Play. This is all done with my handcrafted watercolors and pigment stones. So in the video, you're gonna see a painting unfold. I used my new Wild Blooms swatch tiles. So this actually has a mixture of gouache colors, handmade watercolor, and also a little bit of metallic flake in there. So each tile is just a little bit different, but you can see a well-used one right there. But I just wanted to show you what you could do with these tiles. It makes beautiful layers. I start painting with kind of a lighter wash and then build up layers from there. I've also layered in one of my handcrafted artisan inks, and it's got a bit of a little sparkle. So most of my inks have some type of mica in them. You can see it right when it shines. So sometimes you can't see it on the paper, but when you turn the camera, or if you get the painting in light, let's see if I move this just a little. You can probably see this one a little bit better. Let me move these stones out of the way. But you can see there's that little bit of sparkle on there. So that's a layer of the ink mixed in with the water media pigment stones. So enjoy a peek at the painting process for Wild Blooms. I'm starting out this painting very freeform, and it's all about play and experimentation. I'm not too worried about the composition of the actual florals because I am just working with the watercolors and wanting to experiment with a variety of brushes just to see the marks that they're gonna make. So I start my florals with a lighter wash of watercolor. So there's a lot of water on my brush, and then I move on to another paint on the tile and then start to add in a little bit of a color pop over the top with this red color. And this is a round brush. It's a silver ruby satin round. I think the size is maybe number 8, and it's a long handle. So I also found that with this particular exercise, I felt it was a little too stiff because it's a long handle. It's made for painting more of larger canvases. So I wanted to also experiment with a few different brushes. So I'm going to finish off this floral with that brush, and then I swap out to another one of my silver brushes. And this, I love dagger brushes. If you've been around my workshops or live streams, you know that I paint most of my florals with dagger or dagger striper type brushes. So this is the Silver Silk dagger striper. And I just love the ability that it gives you with creating really fine line detail, but also when you press a little bit harder and add more pressure with the brush, then you get these beautiful lines and angles. And so it's perfect for painting florals. So I continue to build over the top of this painting with a darker purple. It's kind of a reddish purple over the light pink, just to add in a little bit of contrast and to show other parts of the petal. So when I paint florals, they are very abstract, not super photorealistic. You can tell it's a floral, but it's something that I am painting from my memory or imagination. I don't have any photograph in front of me or reference. I'm just painting and playing and letting the marks unfold as I go. So I don't have a plan. I'm not seeing it in my head. I just am letting the mark making happen. And it's really playing with a variety of the colors that are on my swatch tile, and then incorporating some of my other Tracy Bautista color products. So I'll continue to paint different floral shapes and move the brush in different strokes to get that variety of line and shape in my florals. And then you'll see I start to add a little bit of water, so it really starts to get the paint to flow and bloom together. It kind of gives you more of a wet on wet look. And then I'll start to build in the layers with the darker paint once again. So I often work a lot of this wet on wet, and then sometimes I may come over the top when it's dry to do a little bit more fine line detail, but most of this is done wet on wet. This exercise is all about experimentation and play. So I really encourage you to get out your brushes and your favorite paints, if you don't have mine, and start to work on whatever your subject matter is. So I'm in the stage of developing a body of work where I am doing a lot of this playful pre-work to help me figure out the materials I want to use, the colors I may want to use in bigger canvases. And it's training my hand in the skills to make these freestyle florals. So it's what I like to call the creative play part of my process. So I've done a lot of pre-work. This whole body of work that I'm developing is based on my love for the garden and florals, but also based on a trip I took to Monet's garden in Giverny in France. And I am painting right now from my imagination and memory. So I don't have any type of reference photo or anything in front of me. Everything is just painting intuitively and making marks. So I've done a lot of the work prior to this where I worked in my sketchbook with brush pens and did look at photos while I was doing that work. And I also did a lot of sketching and drawing and painting inside of Procreate. And now I'm moving into the mixed media phase of taking all of that research and knowledge and bringing it into this painting phase. So this is what I like to call the inspiration sketchbook. And it's a way for me to experiment and play and find out what works and what color combinations are coming together in the way that I like, and also what tools I may want to use. So with this collection, I've done everything, like I said, from brush pen work to sketching with different markers to Procreate, drawing and sketching. Now I'm working with watercolor. I did a little bit of gel plate work with some of my handmade watercolors. And then all the color I'm using is based on this idea, and it's all handmade for this particular collection. So now you see me painting the florals with a couple of the greens and a little bit of the brown color that's part of this swatch tile. So there's a lot of paint on a swatch tile. The one that I'm using has been used quite a bit, and it wasn't full when I first started using it. So I wanted just to experiment and use it before I finished making the entire paint collection. So what you're seeing is what you can do with the Wild Blooms paint collection. It's really amazing to be able to make the handmade color, then paint with it. So I hope you enjoy a peek into the process. I have fast forwarded just a little bit so that you can see the process unfold. Now that I've painted a number of the florals with the watercolor, I'm incorporating my water media pigment stones into the process, and you can use them wet or dry. And you'll notice I just dab a wet brush over the top, and then I can get a lot of color off of the pigment stone itself. So you can see how to use those in a variety of videos on my YouTube also. If you don't have my watercolors or handmade pigment stones or drawing sticks, you can use any material you have, like watercolors, like golden core watercolors, or you could use pastels, water-soluble pencils. Like I love Derwent is another alternative and I actually would probably use them over the top on some instances, but I also take the pigment stones and use them dry to accent the florals after they've dried, all the watercolors dried. So now I'm using the pigment stones as a wet water-soluble medium. So I put a little bit of water on the ceramic tile, and then I like to wear a glove when I'm painting with the stones, just so I don't get a lot of pigment on my hands. And then I'll take the stone and grind it onto the ceramic tile, and you'll see the pigment start to release to create a watercolor. And then I can draw with the pigment stone while it's wet, and you get a really thick, kind of almost like creamy water-soluble crayon line. And then I can use a brush over the top and dip into the watercolor and then brush out that line and make it really smooth. I could leave it as is, but I decided I wanted to add in just a little bit of water to give it that watercolor look. So you can see how well they blend. You don't see the line after, but you can use it as like a dry medium, like a pastel. And then I'll just continue to add a little bit more florals and add a little darker color to give the florals a little bit more depth. So now I take my handcrafted artisan ink color. It's got a beautiful kind of turquoise sparkle. There's a lot of like gold metallic flake and mica in there. And this time I changed to use a silver ruby satin triangle brush. So this is one of my favorite brushes by Silver Brush, and it just makes the most beautiful leaf and botanical and floral shapes. So I'm using this ink as a accent over the top of some of the florals because I want to add in a little bit of darker color, give it a little bit of pop, but that ink also has a little sparkle in it. So when it dries, you'll get to see this beautiful little shimmer on those areas where I painted the blue ink over top. So I encourage you to get out your inspiration sketchbook and paint some freestyle florals. I hope that you enjoyed this lesson and spend time in your studio playing and painting. I'll see you next time. Bye.